Hello and welcome to a review of The Falling Woman by Pat Murphy that was published in the 80s and won the Nebula Award the year that it was published. And after having read the book, I'm not quite sure it should have won. Not because the book is bad, but because of the other books that were published that year that it was up against. I don't necessarily feel like this book has the same impact or is going to linger or have as much influence as the other books, mostly because I don't really see this book talked about on BookTube at all, and while there are quite a few reviews on Goodreads, it seems to have just, and is, honestly, the best way I can describe this book is it is a book of time and place in more than one aspect. The book narratively follows the first-person perspective alternating of the two female protagonists, which are an estranged mother and daughter. And the mother is a renowned archaeologist that is currently excavating and trying to uncover precious Mayan artifacts in Mexico. And her estranged daughter, whose life has just fallen apart and she has left her job, the lover that she has had has ended their relationship, and her father has just passed away. And so she decides, the daughter, to take a bag and fly to Mexico and try to find her mother and to reconnect. And this book is described as a psychological fantasy, and I feel that like it would be more accurate to describe as just a regular fiction with some haunting elements. I guess it's because it doesn't really have a whole lot of fantasy to it to me, but maybe I just have I have a more rigid view of Sword and Board. Like, I want my fantasy to be a fantasy and an escape, and this just really feels more like a little bit of a spooky ghost story, and not even really spooky or ghosty, more like the mother is dealing with the ghosts of the past and of her past, and the daughter as well. I do feel like doing the first-person perspective, alternating the first-person perspective, really does help push the story forward as far as the estrangement and the dynamic between the two women, Elizabeth and Diane, which are the two female protagonists, the mother and daughter, about how their relationship became to be estranged and how they interact with people and with each other. And it feels like very much a book about time and place, as in you can definitely tell it was written in the 80s based on, you know, the technology that is available at the time, you know, how the Liz, who is the mother, the archaeologist, the renowned writer, is tapping away on her typewriter, Ernest Hemingway style, in the tent, after being out in the sun all day and getting bitten by fleas and drinking a gin and tonic, and is tortured by the ghosts that she sees, and her daughter, like, trying to connect with her frustratingly while she's there. I did enjoy the story because, as someone who my major is in archaeology, it's not in, you know, Mexican or Mayan or ancient civilization archaeology, it's an American archaeology. I do really feel like Pat Murphy in this book showed a lot of respect to both the Mayan culture overall, which I really enjoyed, and also a great respect for the Mayan people and the Mexican people and culture as well. Like, this is a woman who definitely had a lot of respect and treated the subject matter with a lot of respect, even adding the spooky elements to it that she did. I also really like Diane and Liz's interactions with the supporting characters and how psychological fantasy elements of this book Murphy seems to use to, like, try to push the story forward when it starts to slow down, because again, it's two alternating first-person perspectives, and it's literally just the two of them over this couple of week time period talking about what they're doing every day, who they're interacting with, how they're interacting with them, and talking about the dirt and being grimy and digging and finding stuff, which is, you know, how life is. life is not exciting all of the time. It is a lot of times just getting up in the morning, doing your job, coming back, maybe having a drink or two, maybe having a casual fling, and going to bed and waking up the next day. And the story is a lot of that, with some spooky elements attached to it, and a great respect for Mexican people culture and the Mayan people and culture. And then it gets, the plot continues this slow creep along, and we get to like the crux where stuff starts to happen, and then it just happens super fast as far as the pacing goes. Like, you have this slow, steady movement, right? And then it just, suddenly stuff starts happening. Like, it goes from being like slightly spooky just to like move things forward just a little bit and make things slightly more interesting. And, you know, daily life on a dig site, which, to be honest, if you've ever been an archaeologist and been on a dig site, it's literally just like days, weeks, and months of just tedium. It's not Indiana Jones, which I appreciated that that's what it felt like the whole way through. But then it just, stuff starts to happen right at the end, and you're just left with an intense amount of sadness at the end of the book. Or at least that's how I felt. I felt an intense amount of sadness at the end of this book. And trying not to spoil the plot, I think part of that sadness comes from the fact that throughout the entirety of the book, of these two women trying to find a common ground, that they never seemed to quite connect it. They always seemed very closed and standoffish towards each other and slightly towards everybody else. And if you don't want anything even remotely spoilery because you're interested in reading the book, I just don't like how it felt. I don't like how the story forced the two women to have a trauma bond in order for them to come to some kind of functioning relationship. That is definitely a way to form a relationship, and trauma bonded relationships are formed every day, but I don't know, I guess I kind of hoped for more. I kind of hoped for more of a connection, or a different way for there to be a connection between these two women after like listening to their hopes and dreams, their thoughts and memories and their processes, and reading their interactions with each other and with everyone around them. I'd kind of had hoped for more, and I guess honestly probably, I know Diane in the story, the daughter, hoped for more. I don't know, I just felt sad at the end of it. I was like, this was a good book. I enjoyed reading it. It was easy for me to read. I don't think I don't feel like this made a deep impact on me other than a sense of sadness. Like, I don't think I will ever think happily about this book. I'll just feel like a sense of sadness whenever I think about the book, because that's literally all I felt throughout the majority of the whole story, was just this lingering sense of sadness, of aloneness, of being isolated from self and others. And yeah, so maybe be in a really good headspace if you decide to read this book after watching this video and this really bad review of me saying that I like the book, but it just made me sad. And if you like vintage novels that have female protagonists that are not, you know, teenagers, this would be a good book for you. So yeah, bye. Bye.